I think I really started to kind of take note of that early middle school, kind of noticing separation anxiety. And then maybe towards the end of middle school is when I started to see that kind of progress into more depressive thoughts and occasional, suicidal thoughts. I wrote my mom a note. I was telling her, some things going on in my head that I don't want them to be there. And I was at one of my lowest points when I found out that I was pregnant. Oliver is the reason that I'm still here today. I also pretty vividly remember the day that everything shut down. For me, I think it really triggered like a health anxiety. My delivery team, they were very kind and sweet, and I didn't even get to see their face. Wasn't sure how to feel about it because I was bringing him into a world where we don't see anybody's face and nobody could come near us.
Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk podcast. I'm Carla Hutcherson, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandy Mock, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about
real people, real issues, and real talk. Well, welcome back to the Mental Perk. We are so excited to have our first Gen Z guest, I think. Is that right? You're our first one, Faith. So Faith Longbottom, she is an advocate for mental health. She uses her social media to really be supportive of others who are struggling with mental health. She's such an inspirational writer. If you ever get a chance to look her up, she has beautiful writings that she puts out on her social media. But in addition to that, Faith is a single mom to an additional needs adorable child named Oliver. She's going to tell us a little bit about some of his needs in this episode, and we're so excited to learn about how she navigates managing his needs and raising him while being a single mom. I know she does have a great support system, so she's going to tell us a little bit about that as well. And Faith has been on her own mental health journey since adolescence, and she's had to learn how to manage her own mental health and really understanding those challenges. She is super passionate for mental health reform and really highlighting awareness to mental health. And so we're so excited to have her join our show. Welcome, Faith.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. A little nervous, but
don't be nervous.
Yes, no, you are going to do a great job. So we're so excited to have you. So tell us a little bit, let's kind of start with your mental health journey, Faith. Like, when did you notice that you were struggling with anxiety? I know that there's a family history there, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But tell us about when you first started noticing what the symptoms were and how it affected you.
Yeah, I think I really started to kind of take note of that, maybe like middle school, like early middle school, kind of noticing, especially like separation anxiety, having to, I got to go to school and I have to be away from home. So I would really struggle with the idea of, spending those days away from home, and, in my bubble, my safe space, and especially like in, going through public school, there's a lot of demands to like the social aspect of things. And so I noticed some social anxiety, especially when, you get those big presentations and, really just kind of would make me sweat a little bit and kind of just get really obsessive about that kind of stuff. And so I would say that, went on throughout middle school, and then maybe towards the end of middle school going into early high school is when I started to see that kind of progress into more, and started taking note of some depressive thoughts and occasional, suicidal thoughts. And I think that went on for quite a while before I decided that I couldn't and didn't want to do it alone. So at that point, I remember the day very vividly. I wrote my mom a note, but I was telling her, I think that there's, some things going on in my head that I don't want them to be there, and I don't think that that's, healthy. And I think I put the note on her on her pillow, and I don't know what I did while I waited for her to find the note, but and then she wrote me back, and so through writing letters, we kind of came up with a attack plan, I guess you could say. And excuse me, we started with trying different medications and doing some counseling in the mix of that. And, the medicated side of things is just such trial and error. So there was a lot of struggle in that, finding the right mix of things and what works and what doesn't. And there was at least one that I remember that really did not work, and it was pretty opposite effects that got a little bit scary.
So you've brought up some really interesting points, Faith, and I want to start by highlighting a couple of things that you guys have really did right, because I really want other people to know that, when you start noticing these things, if you're not comfortable talking about it, what you did was amazing. It was so resourceful that you actually wrote a letter and gave it to somebody. Yeah. I thought that was super cool.
That actually, I was shocked when she said that, because the fact that she felt like she could write to her mom.
Yeah.
100%. And then mom responded that way. I mean, that's stinking cool.
It is. And it's so neat that you thought of that, because a lot of people don't know how to get those conversations started. And if you're more comfortable writing than speaking, that is such a neat way to do it.
Yeah.
So I really admire your courage in doing that. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's great, a very comforting source for me to come to, especially with her own understandings of these kind of things. She's really a good support system for me. And yeah, it's really nice because I'm bad with speaking words. I can write them a lot easier.
Yes.
So and that's kind of always been our thing too, now in the modern day society with our tiny glowing screens, I'll write her a long text or something, but that's stayed standard for us, is to write excuse me, to write these heavy thoughts and get that conversation and kind of break the ice of the heavy things. It makes it feel a little bit less heavy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that writing can sometimes be a way to really get those thoughts out and really express yourself a little bit better and really organize your thoughts. So I think that's a great way of communicating. The other thing I really wanted to bring up is a challenge that many people who are trying to manage their mental health and find what works for them is the medication, because medications can do wonders for people who have, chronic clinical depression and anxiety. But sometimes you have to do the whole trial and error thing, and there are side effects to certain medications that affect some people and not others. So I think it's great that you're bringing out the point of don't give up if one doesn't work. You have to work with your doctor and keep trying different medications until you find the one that metabolizes best with your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that's a huge point too. Stress is 100% work through your doctor with it. That was a reckless mistake that I made, was to kind of take it into my own hands with the medication. So at one point I just stopped taking one of them, and that had really bad side effects, as it does, the withdrawal and stuff to your body. So I learned a hard lesson that way, is just, 100% like full disclosure communication with your doctor makes 100% of the difference.
It does. And because as you go along, your body can change or at certain times of the year. And so you constantly have to work with your doctor to make sure you're adjusting the medication to make sure you're getting the most benefits out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and so Faith, are you still managing your mental health care that way, the anxiety and the depression?
Yeah, I am. Yep. I've got a workup of medication. I'm not seeing any counselors or therapists or anything, but I've kind of been considering it just because I know that it can be and is really beneficial to just have that neutral space to talk to, and, just air your mind. And so I've been thinking about doing that, but I'm just not very good at talking to people. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, maybe you can start writing your therapist, and your therapist can write you back. I'm just still.
I think
I think
is a
that's
neat tool.
amazing.
Yes,
Like,
no,
how
totally.
many people, just with your short little story here that you're telling, Faith, are you going to be able to allow these other Gen Zs or even adults?
Yeah.
I say adults, you're an adult, but non-Gen Z, to write how they feel? Because I don't know about you, Faith, but let me ask you a question. From the time you first started writing your mom and your journey now, are you able to go back and reflect on those moments you had and go, man, I really stuck this out. I was really strong and did what I needed to do to get through the situation?
yeah, absolutely. I especially, lately, just to look back and see how I was at that point. I was really, I feel like, just gasping for air, and just the crushing weight of, society and social, like, peer pressure at school and stuff, to um, thinking about, how hard that was for me. And I think my family too really struggled seeing me go through that. And to see me now, I'm incredibly proud of myself, um, to see how far I've come, and to know that I'm not I'm not like a hazard to anybody anymore. Like, whether that's, emotionally or whatever, I've greatly improved. And it's really cool to see that, complete 180 difference.
Well, and I tell you another thing that's such a positive thing is that I just heard you say, I'm very proud of myself.
I love
and
that.
you and me both, we love that, because you've got to love yourself. You've got to love yourself through the good times and the bad times. And for you to be able to acknowledge that, that says you've come far, kiddo.
I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really, a really special feeling. And especially, to think about those days, and, to give myself some grace and forgive myself, because it was really hard and I didn't know what I was doing. So, to be kind to my past self for doing what I could with what I knew, and, navigating it in the best way I could. And, still today, that's not to say that I don't still struggle with these things, but I know now to be patient with myself, and um, to know that there's still hope.
100%. Hope is always there. So I love that you say that, because there are going to be times when life gives us these little twists and turns in the road. And to know that hope is there and that you've conquered so much already helps you to get through those things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So let's go into, I believe did you finish high school right before the pandemic hit, or was it right at the beginning of it?
I graduated in 2019,
Okay, right
spring.
before.
So I was, maybe a little less than a year ahead of the pandemic with graduation.
But what you did find out during this time was that you were pregnant, right? Right before the
Yeah,
pandemic hit.
yeah. I got pregnant, I think, maybe like 6 months after graduating. So I was 18, um, and, going through pregnancy, and I worked full time for food service. And so I also pretty vividly remember the day that everything shut down, and how scared I was, because at that point I was very pregnant, and the world just stopped in its tracks. And the everybody's vibes and energy towards each other, it just was a drastic change. And I remember being afraid for, what that meant for mine and my child's future. If it's ever going to get better, or am I going to, raise my child in a world where nobody gets to see each other's faces. It's just like it was a really isolating feeling. Um, yeah.
So I can imagine with your mental health struggles that you've had or challenges in the past, I bet the pregnancy and being in the midst of this pandemic really activated those symptoms for you.
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah, definitely like the anxiety. Um, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. It really either brought out anxiety that they didn't know they had, or, if you were already predisposed to anxiety, it just really heightened those feelings. And kind of for me, I think it really triggered like a health anxiety that I didn't know was there, because I wasn't just taking care of myself. I needed to also protect my unborn child, um, and try to, uh, I guess, plan ahead as much as I could for that future. Um, so yeah, it was, really an anxious time, and also just like I said, the isolation. It's it's just really lonely, and can trigger some heavy depression too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you saying all of this at being 18 years old, and I'm thinking about myself at 18 years old.
I'm listening to her, and I'm like, you're so wise beyond your years. Yes. Are you sure you're Gen Z?
I know, that's just crazy. I was like, I don't even know how I could have navigated what you navigated.
Yeah, it was really just like taking it day by day, and because especially at that point, you just had no clue what was happening. And so again, I just kept doing what I could with what I had. And but that's not to say that it wasn't hard and it wasn't terrifying, and I questioned everything that the world was throwing my way. But I especially at that point, I persevered, because I had more than just myself to worry about. And I really think that, I swear up and down that Oliver is the reason that I'm still here today.
Oh.
I was at one of my lowest points when I found out that I was pregnant. And it was at that point that I realized it's not just about me, and I need to stay, because there's this little, I don't know who you're going to be, but you are counting on me, and I need to stay for you, because I want you to know who I am. And I think it's really cool to think about, someday I'll get to tell Oliver, just how much I went through to be this person for him, and for him to know that, hard work pays off, I guess.
100%. What great life lessons for him, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Oliver is so lucky to have you as a mama, because there's a lot of people that would not have taken that perspective. But it often takes these little surprises in our lives to shift the motion of what we're thinking and how we respond to future events. And so I think the fact that you are mature enough to say, this is not about me anymore, this is about him, is courageous.
I don't even mean to make light of it, but the term, making lemonade out of lemons. I mean, I think that's such a life lesson there, because this was such a shock to you, number one, that you were pregnant at 18, number two, to be in this pandemic, and somehow you still managed to make lemonade out of this whole thing and really focus on Oliver and the joy he was going to bring you.
And I love that name, Oliver. I just love, you're going to have to send us some pictures of Oliver. If you're comfortable, we need to put him in this
He is
episode.
The cutest little redhead cutie. I mean, adorable. So yeah, we have to throw his little picture in this episode somewhere.
Yeah. He's got the fiery red hair to match his fiery spirit. He's a wild child.
Just the Irish, right?
100%. No, just adorable little child. I mean, he is so precious. So let's go to like when you were having to deliver Oliver, and now we're in the pandemic and everyone's wearing masks, and you didn't even get to have your family around you.
Yeah, that was really hard. And looking back again, I think in those moments, you just are going through the motions. And I mean, again, I think that's kind of the case for anybody that's, giving birth. You don't have a clue what's going to happen. So you just have to go with it. But it was really again, an isolating and lonely experience. One thing that really stands out to me now is to think about my delivery team. They were very kind and sweet and gracious and patient with me. And I didn't even get to see their face. I didn't, I could look them in the eyes, but I couldn't see them, smiling at me. I could hear their encouraging words, but I couldn't see their faces. Um, and to be in a world where we really rely on that, facial recognition to, sense the energy and stuff, because like you say, it's going to be okay, but how do I know that when I can't see you? I'm
Wow.
going in this
100%.
blind.
Yeah, I don't even think that we realize how much not seeing people's faces impacted the world during that time,
Oh, a smile, a hug,
Yeah.
all of it.
And all the
Yeah.
children that didn't see people's faces.
Yeah.
hmm Yeah, I think it's such a huge part of, again, that we don't realize and that we probably still have dialed back to taking for granted is not being able to see somebody's whole face, and just how much we really rely on that to fully know a person. And again, like you said, a hug. It's the physical contact that we rely on with other humans, and nobody could have any of that. So it was a really, it just felt like a very cold experience. Um, and even the warmth and sunshine of bringing a child into the world, I still wasn't sure how to feel about it, because I was bringing him into a world where we don't see anybody's face and nobody could come near us. So it's kind of freaky. It felt like a dystopian novel.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, I mean, what it would have been like to be in that situation.
Oh, the isolation.
Right? The isolation and feeling that way.
It almost feels like a movie.
It does. And I just hope that as a nation, we have learned how to handle pandemics in a different way that doesn't isolate and cut people off like that. I feel like that's just not the best way to handle it. So I'm hoping that we learn something so that if and when another one comes through, that we learn how to do it with a little more humanity.
Well, we're not meant to be alone.
Oh, 100%. We weren't made to be
Yeah.
that
So,
way.
Faith,
Definitely.
they didn't allow your mom back into delivery with you?
No, I was allowed one person to be with me. Um, and that was Oliver's dad.
Okay.
But the aftermath, especially because I know for a lot of people that's so special for the grandparents and great grandparents and aunts and uncles, everybody to come and dote on the new baby and check in with mom, and we didn't get to have that.
Yeah.
So it was really just me and these nurses and doctors that I had no clue who they were.
Yeah, that's hard.
So yeah, we couldn't have the visitors and nothing like that.
Wow.
And to be so young and
I know.
have to navigate that is just
Yeah.
unbelievable. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit, Faith, and look at what life was like with Oliver dealing with this as a single mom. And I know you had some, his father's been involved in some of those years. But I just was like, what was it like for you? How did you learn how to be a mom? What kind of resources did you use?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess, starting kind of vaguely from bringing him home from the hospital, with the isolation still going on with COVID, was like, I was scared to have people over because I had just been in the hospital. So I don't want you guys to like potentially pick something up from me. So I think that anxiety with the health and stuff, I kind of also intentionally isolated us, because I was afraid of getting sick and I was afraid of other people getting sick. So I think for those first 2 months or so of having Oliver, I also made sure not to see anybody. And I do look back and regret that. I wish that I would have just said, screw it. Like I need my support system. So that was really hard. I felt like at that point I was 19. I had Oliver a month after I turned 19. I'm a 19-year-old mom, and I have no clue what I'm doing. I want my mom. I
Yeah.
want somebody to tell me what I'm doing because I had no clue. Um, and that's just another one of those things of going through the motions. Um, and I I do think that um, I ended up, with this having a really, really strong bond with Oliver, and kind of figuring out how, newborns can't talk, but, figuring out as the ages and stages of growth, how he communicates and talks to me. Um, and I can't stress enough that we grew together, then we learned together and navigated a brand new world at the exact same time because I had no clue either.
I love that, though.
I do love
I love that because
so much.
we don't realize how much those little ones are teaching us, even through their nonverbal communication, just the fact that they're there with you. And here's the thing, Faith, I heard you say, you'd have gone back and done things differently. I think anybody that went through the pandemic, which is the whole world, I think we're all saying that now. We would have done a lot of things differently because there were people that unfortunately lost their lives. They couldn't be with their loved ones when they passed. There's births that were happening like with you. I mean, the isolation from needing mama to help the new mama navigate through little Oliver's life. I mean, those are all things that are very normal, but then we had to top it off with COVID. So I think the fact that you did what you did was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think that the neat thing is since that time, you've really been able to bond with Oliver's been able to bond with his grandparents, and they're really involved in his life now.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, the doing what I could with what I knew and what I had, to now, and kind of again forgiving myself for making quote like mistakes, and just looking at now how well it actually did turn out, going from a point of not having a clue how we're gonna get through each new turn and navigating everything to seeing now that it turned out okay, and how close he and I both get to be to our support system and how strong the village really is for us.
I love that.
I do too.
I do love that so much. So, Faith, as Oliver's growing, you started to notice some differences for him or things that maybe you weren't sure about. Tell us a little bit about some of those things that you noticed and how you got the help that you needed.
Yeah, I guess I kind of think that again one of those things in this society is that those questions are kind of always like drilled into your mind. It's like, oh my gosh, is that normal? Like, is my child supposed to be doing that? Or not knowing what's happening and stuff. So I think a lot of things I tried to wait and see if he would grow out of them, because some things really are just stages. So I think it was around the age that kids are supposed to be kind of forming words, and not necessarily talking, but getting there. He had started talking, but then I would say a few months later, he stopped, and went back to a lot of like grunting and babbling, and never really picked it back up. He could do very basic stuff. One thing that really stands out to me, I don't think that he might have been like 2.5 before I heard him say mama, which was a huge like waterworks, like, oh my gosh. I wasn't sure if I would ever hear that from him. But I think, yeah, probably around 2.5, I remember going to my sister, who is also a huge support for me. We are tied at the hip. We're really close. I remember going to her with a lot of these questions, because she has a son as well that's 4 months younger than Oliver. So they're very similar in their ages and stages, or they should be. And so I asked her, what do you guys think? Because I think that there's some things that just might not be adding up. And, that wasn't a bad thing. I needed some, like, a second opinion or something. And so at that point, I just kind of was paying a little bit more close attention to it. And I think it was maybe around his third birthday that she and I were driving home from the zoo with our sons. And the zoo was a really rough experience. He was, really overstimulated and had a full-blown screaming meltdown. And I was just like trying to calm him down, or, I didn't know what to do. And so on that drive home, she turned on some soothing piano music, and he calmed down, and she might choke up a little bit. She looked at me while she was driving, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I told her, "I don't know." I was really worried. And I just got quiet for a little bit. She said, if you don't say something, I'm going to start crying." And I told her, I think I need to seek further for this. And like I said, I didn't know what that would mean. So that was really scary. At that time, I didn't know what it was, but I had a pretty strong feeling that it was autism. And, again, just in a society of not knowing people and not knowing how to navigate these things, I just really didn't know what the future would hold for us. But I did know that I wanted what was best for Oliver, and I knew that meant going further into it and helping him to help himself.
So at that point, you got him tested at a center somewhere?
So it was actually at that point I had started first with his pediatrician, where she gave me a referral for speech therapy. And we started speech therapy and we had done that for a few months before I decided to also start him in occupational therapy. And, in the pediatrics, it's a lot of, helping them with mood regulation and finding the good stimulation for your mind and body. And I think it was around the time that we were doing occupational therapy that I was able to start working with what is called Montana Developmental Assessment Clinic. Mm-hmm. And we had done a telehealth with her, so that she could kind of get a better idea of what we were working with. And that kind of stuff is really, really booked out, whether it's, an assessment for autism or, childhood trauma, ADHD, all sorts of stuff. They're a very, very busy group of people. So we did get that scheduled, and it was February the following year.
Wow.
So in the meantime, I just, kept plugging away with the therapies, and long days of, making half an hour trip one way just to get him to his therapy. And so doing speech and occupational therapy. And then we did get his assessment, which was honestly a really, really cool experience.
It's a neat
it's
experience.
A whole team. Yeah, a whole team of people, just they all do something different. And so it's cool to see that many working minds that are that they just know so much. They are so smart, and it's mind-boggling to me. And it was like a 3-hour assessment total with, the different stations of assessing things like speech and mood regulation and like social cues and social interactions and stuff. And I would say it was maybe a little less than a week later that we had scheduled to talk with the doctor again so that she could give us the results. And she did confirm the autism spectrum on a level 2, which means, it's out of 3 levels, 3 being needing substantial support, and 2 is needing support, and a 1 is, on the more independent side. And one thing that I always like to look back on that she told me was that, this isn't bad. It's good that you know this now so that you can continue helping him. But we don't want to change him. We just want to help him function, help him navigate this ever-changing world. Yeah, absolutely. And so I always remind myself, we don't want to change him. We just want him to be Oliver. And he's the best Oliver.
Well, the one thing too, though, Faith, that I've learned with children that have additional needs, I call them abilities, because they're able to tap into things in their brains that we can't. And I find that as an ability for these kids, because I think that they're teaching us so many things that we take for granted every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a great, he sets an example for me. I feel like I kind of paved that path for him, but he's the one, setting the example. And I think that he, over the years has taught me a lot of patience and acceptance, and just a whole new compartment of love that I didn't even know was possible. He's taught me a lot.
Yeah, and when I see you write, you do write-ups about him, and just, you're really almost doing a journal on your Facebook of, life with Oliver. And so I love that so much, because there's so much to learn from that for other people who are also dealing with these issues.
Yeah. I tell myself that, I write these things, and I keep a little, separate journal of them, just, keep it on hand, but I also will share them because I do like to think that it, even if, somebody's not, navigating, raising kids with, autism or special needs or, whatever it may be, I think that there's a lot that somebody can take away from it in any realm, of struggles, and to, I don't know, just know that there's, I guess, solidarity in the hardship.
Oh yeah, I know for a fact just what you're doing, and you'll have to share that with us so we can put it on our page when we get ready to go live on this episode, because I want people to be able to reach out to you, Faith, and be able to ask you questions, or you guys are able to encourage each other because they may be on the same journey or gone through that journey that you're going through currently. And it's just resources. You're able to see things in a different way that a lot of people take for granted every day.
Yeah, it's one thing to get the professional help, but it's a whole nother thing to actually be able to ask questions and communicate with someone who's living it every day, because you feel that sense of understanding. So I think it's amazing that you're going to be able to be that resource for people.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of stuff that I want to do, and exactly what I wanted to come from something like this, is to just let people know that I have a pretty wide range of understanding on a lot of things, but it's not everything. But that's okay, because I just think that strong sense of empathy even is really important for people to have in anyone that they decide to reach out to, and find comfort in knowing that it's not just you. I think that's I like to think that I'm being the kind of person that I wish I had, to knowing that a lot of these things do happen, and that it wasn't just me. So
100%. You've lived a whole lifetime in your very young 23 years. and you do have so much ahead of you in your future, Faith. And I can't wait to see what you do with all of this, because I know you're going to have a big impact on the world. What I would like you to do is give, like, from each little area of your life, give kind of an empowering message for people. So people who are struggling with mental health and are starting to notice those symptoms, can you give some sort of empowering message for people in that stage?
Yeah. Yeah. To acknowledge that it's hard and that it's okay that it's hard. It's okay to feel the way you feel. Um, and what's not necessarily okay is to do it by yourself. There's no reason that anybody needs to go at it alone. So my biggest, I guess, word of advice is talk to somebody, no matter who it is. Just air that out and get it off your chest. And yeah, just don't stay silent about it, because in the silence is where a lot of people get lost, and some
Yes.
people unfortunately do not resurface from their silence.
Yeah,
So
100%.
always talk. Never
I
stop
love
talking.
that. I love that, Faith. So in the next thing, I wanted you to send an empowering message when a young woman finds herself in a situation where she's pregnant and maybe doesn't, have someone that's going to ride that journey with them. What are some words that you can offer to those women who are feeling really scared and about the future and maybe feeling a little hopeless?
Yeah, it's definitely terrifying. And again, um, to know that it's okay to acknowledge that. Um, I I won't lie to anybody. I was terrified. And I think that it's really, really important to acknowledge that fear so that you can, or, the fear or the concerns and the what ifs and just the navigating the unknown is just to be honest with yourself and acknowledge that this is how I'm feeling, and, that I could probably benefit from, either talking to somebody or, um, and also just to remind yourself that even though you don't know what's going to happen, and a whole future of unknowns, that it's okay, and you will live to fight another day because you're strong, and it just opens a whole new world and a whole new perspective when you do finally get to hold that child and navigating the world together, and it just opens up a whole new realm of strength that you didn't even know was possible. And just, really keep reminding yourself that it's going to be okay someday. Something I tell myself a lot, that is, that someday it's going to be okay. And it might not be right now, and it might not be tomorrow, but it won't stay like this forever, because it
Yes,
can't. That's just not possible. So
absolutely.
it's going to be okay.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
So the last one I want you to give is, as a young mom of a child with additional needs, what can you empower women who are in that situation?
Yeah, I think really the number one thing that I could always say is trust your gut. Um, I think that there's a lot of doubt that comes with advocating for things like that for your children, whether that's, society or self-doubt. But trust your gut, because I I think I kind of went back and forth on doubting myself. But I pushed through. I trusted my gut, and I can really today see it paying off that I did follow through with that. Um, because my son, benefited from it. And, even after facing that doubt again, it was a situation of, that it's not just about me. I'm doing this for you. Um, and, to really, really stick it out and be strong for your child, because you will see the improvement, and your child will reap the benefits of your strength. Um, and I think in turn with that, you get to reap those benefits too, because you kind of get to look back and see, like, that was a really hard time for me, but I was really strong, and it's gotten us so far. So
I think it's so important to know that you are the biggest advocate for your child. And on top of that, I really want to highlight there are so many resources to help mothers and to really go out there and search for those, because people are there to help you. You don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Whether those, those resources are like me, with the tight knit family support, or, there's just a quick Google search away of, help for young single moms, or, struggling, anybody that's in a struggle. There's always something out there to help you navigate that situation. Um, and yeah, strongly encourage people to look into that stuff so that you can, have that
Well,
extra strength to get through it.
well, Faith, Oliver is lucky to have you, and you're so lucky to have Oliver. And let me tell you, even more so, our audience is super lucky to have your testimony.
Yes.
And to be able to navigate people that are in your situation, young or old. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
100%.
such a wise young adult. I'm like listening to you. You seem like such an old soul. So I know you're not, but I want to tell you thank you for being on the show and sharing your heart and sharing your journey, because I know your story is going to help people. And I know Oliver is so proud of his mama. He may not be able to tell you right now, but he's going to tell you he is so proud of his mother.
Well, we cannot wait to see what you do in the future, Faith. We know that you're going to be able to take this journey that you've been on, and you're going to be able to impact so many.
Yeah, I sure hope so. That's my mission, is to, change the world, even if it's just one person's world. I want them to know that it's okay.
That's perfect, Faith. Thank you so much for being on our show, and we cannot wait to get this out for others to hear. If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.